Tonight, the Night Watcher worm of Jakku. Is it a weird animal or an even weirder trash compactor? Our sources say, why not both?
And the Hutts. How much power do they actually wield? We tell you in a special... What do you mean we just went bankrupt? Who bought us out? Oh. In a breaking news special report, the Hutts are great. More at 11. Ladies and Celestins, welcome back to another episode of Hoth Topics, a podcast about Star Wars. I am shameless Jedi shill Ian, and joining me is an Imperial propaganda puppet John. John, how have you been?
I'm doing all right, Ian. How are you? How are things?
Things are okay. It's been a very interesting past couple weeks for Star Wars. I think you and I have been doing a lot of different cool things in terms of both with the podcast and just in our day-to-day Star Wars loving lives. So it's been pretty fun.
Do you have anything else to say?
I was kind of waiting for a response from you on that one.
It really wasn't a question asked. It was more of a statement.
Right. Conversations don't always end with questions.
They should, though.
That's true.
That's how you continue conversations.
Not necessarily.
That's
fair. We have mountains of evidence to prove that conversations flow strangely. You know, they're episodes of Hoth Topics podcast that we're listening to. So if you want to hear more about conversations, but at any rate, it's been a fun week. We went on a figure hunt for our collection. We're big fans of the Black Series 6-inch figures, and a couple new ones got announced, and we were kind of just hoping that they would appear. They never do, though.
Yeah, those Walmart or Walgreens exclusives just never seem to show up over here.
No, I'm still waiting on my Ghost Obi-Wan. Another thing we did is we ended up watching Forces of Destiny, which is different than Force and Destiny, the supplement for the Fantasy Flight games, which is in turn different than Destiny, the dice game. Forces of Destiny is the YouTube show that Disney puts out, Lucasfilm puts out.
Tell me more about it, Ian.
It's an interesting project. It is definitely not marketed for our demographic of big sweaty adult nerds, but it's definitely marketed towards a younger female audience. And I kind of hesitate to say that out loud because it gives the connotation that this series is only for young girls. And after watching it and going through it, I don't think that's true. I think that anybody in the younger demographic can watch it and get something out of it. It's definitely not something that is geared towards the older demographic, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. I think it's kind of cool that there's something out there that helps introduce new fans who maybe weren't being catered to in the main movies or in some of the shows to the Star Wars series. I like the idea that there's something out there that parents could say, oh, this would be a good way to get my kid into Star Wars. And they have that ability now. They have that resource with this fun little YouTube series.
I like the concept of the series, what they're going for trying to reach out for that young female demographic. Me and you have probably grown up thinking that Star Wars is for boys. At least that's how I've always felt it. It was kind of pushed.
Yeah, it was.
And even though, you can go to a convention, you can see just how many non-boys are in the fandom.
Non-boys.
Yes, opposite boys. And that it took them 40 years to jump on that. Kind of depressing, but, Disney has been doing that with the princesses and everything. So I think it's a cool experiment to see if that target demographic is going to be reached through these. Or if, unfortunately, someone will see that says Star Wars and just think it's not right for my daughter, sort of thing. Okay, and not even, watch it and see what they're trying to show.
So you're kind of worried that people will see it's a Star Wars brand, and regardless of who it's targeting, not show it to their kids because it's Star Wars, which is historically male-oriented.
Male-marketed.
Male-marketed. That's a good that's a better term. Yeah, okay, I can see that being it would be interesting to kind of find some people who have introduced their children into Star Wars this way. If you are listening and you have a experience introducing somebody in your life to Star Wars through Forces of Destiny, let us know. I'd be really interested in hearing kind of how that goes and what that story is.
Now, one thing I really do like about it is the episodes are short, 10-ish minutes.
Not even, like 2-ish
minutes. Oh, yeah, 2-ish minutes. Sorry, I'm thinking I've been binging Adventure Time. Well, what I like is these stories, they're not necessarily, like, standalone. Not all of them are, but some of them do fill kind of plot hole gaps in the movies.
Right.
They don't necessarily... They're not plot holes that need to be filled. But it's just kind of cool to kind of see where some of these things will fit in, pulling in characters from all the mediums, from the main movies to the cartoons.
Yeah, what I never really felt like there were very few episodes. We binged through the whole thing, and there were very few that felt like completely out of place to me. Like, I can believe the things that are happening when they're happening could have happened. Now, that sounds like a very confusing sentence, so let me explain a little bit further. Like, for example, the very first episode, which we'll go into a little bit more depth here in a second, takes place with BB-8 and Rey in the sands of Jakku. Now, we didn't see this happen in the movie, but it takes place at a point in the film where there was a time gap, and I can totally believe the things that are being explored in this little YouTube series could very well have happened in that time period. It doesn't... Very few of them feel forced to me. Does that make sense?
Very few of them. There are a few that I feel are kind of...
Yeah. No, I agree.
Obnoxiously shoehorned in.
I agree. That's why I went with most as my keyword there. There are a couple that it's just like, really, guys? But then you have to remember what it is we're watching. So, because it's so bite-sized in form, we thought we'd take a minute to discuss a couple of the episodes that we saw, and then going forward in future episodes, we'll come back and revisit them and maybe go a couple episodes at a time and just let you guys know what we thought about them. If you're looking to watch the whole thing, they're all available on YouTube through, I think it's Disney's page, isn't it?
I believe so.
Yeah. They're all available on the internet. It's a really easy thing to find and watch.
Totally free, which is important.
Totally free, yes. I feel that the quote-unquote price tag is appropriate.
I agree.
For what we're getting here. It's great little bite-sized filler content, and there tends to be a negative connotation to the word filler, but in this case, it's not a bad thing. But that's what it is, you know. So, John, I thought we would take a minute and kind of go over the first couple episodes of Forces of Destiny.
I think I'm with you on this for the sake of creating content for the show.
Yeah, I think that's a good thing to do. You may not like it, you may not agree with it, but you accept it.
I feel like that's a quote from something.
Probably a Star Trek movie?
Yeah, probably.
Oh, no, wait. Battlestar Galactica.
How dare you? They didn't make a Battlestar Galactica movie. They made TV movies. Like Pegasus. And what was the other one? There was another one. Blood and Chrome. That was more of a mini-series.
As you can see, of the two of us, John is the one who has a further knowledge of sci-fi outside of Star Wars. I, unfortunately, am still a pleb in most of those waters. How about we talk some Star Wars, and let's talk some Forces of Destiny. The first episode that we took a look at was called The Sands of Jakku. This first little short opens up with the Night Watcher worm, which is some sort of trash-eating, junk-eating creature.
You'd remember it from the movie with the creature that has a T-shaped head that's just kind of watching Rey.
BB-8.
In BB-8?
It's when BB-8's escaping from the battle where Ren captures Poe. And BB-8's like rolling away and that thing just kind of like looks at him.
Real quick, I feel real dumb.
Yeah, what's up?
I just realized that village in the beginning of the movie is on Jakku.
I feel as though that you normally had this information, and the fact that I am forcing this upon you late at night has made your brain forget.
I don't know why, but like I just no. Like I don't know what it was, but I didn't connect that village that the First Order blows up and Jakku were the same place.
Wow. Well, now you know.
Well, that makes the whole movies different.
See, doesn't that make this exploration of Forces of Destiny worth it?
I guess, but now I have to go rewatch all the movies.
Oh, shame. How are you ever going to get through those?
I guess I'll start with Attack of the Clones. No, Phantom. Man,
yeah,
I'm tired. I don't know which one movie came first.
Phantom, good.
So
this Night Watcher worm, and speaking of that scene where he pops his head up and he watches BB-8 go, I legitimately thought that was
the extent of the creature.
That was just a dude poking his head out of the sands. Like there's a similar looking creature in the cantina.
Yep.
And I thought he was just one of those species. But apparently there's like an entire giant like snail worm thing with a mouth.
It's very similar to the graboid creatures from the Tremors movies.
Okay, I'm not
except
familiar.
with a giant T-shaped head instead of just being a giant worm.
Yeah.
But it's similar thing. The creature can burrow through the sand at high speeds and eat things. Except in Tremors, they eat people. In this movie, or in this short, they eat
junk.
They eat junk.
Junk was the word used. So to me, like reading way too deep into this, I'm like, so I guess it's kind of like a goat. Like it has, can digest just about anything, because that couldn't have been its natural feeding component. No creature evolves on junk.
Or it could just be Star Wars.
Yeah, exactly. Like I said, completely over analyzing the whole thing. But it's kind of a cool creature. It ends up attacking Rey and BB-8. It's important to point out too that many of the voices in Forces of Destiny, not all of them, but many of them are voiced by their actual actors. I think that's pretty neat, and kind of cool that they would take time out of their schedules to come and do this. I'm sure they're getting paid for it, but it's still, a really small side project. This sandworm creature attacks Rey and BB-8 because BB-8 looks tasty, and the thing hasn't eaten. There is a bit of a chase scene. We get to see some of Rey being very heroic and dodging the worm and saving BB-8. They end up back at her downed AT-AT hideout, and she lets the creature go by feeding it a hunk of something that she had sitting around. And that's the end of the episode. Like, it's only, 2 minutes and 30 seconds long, I think? Something like that. In 3-ish so minutes, it presented a neat little story that explored things that we already knew about Rey's character, or that are not so far-fetched as to be conflicting with her canonical appearances. It was a fun little thing. What did you think about this whole little
experiment?
Yeah. It's an experiment that's gone on for 2 seasons, so it must be doing something right.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I probably shouldn't be calling it an experiment. That kind of diminishes what they're doing,
right?
What they're trying to do. So I will try to stop. I'll try and experiment to stop saying that. I did enjoy these. The first one we watched, this one we're talking about, I could see pretty quickly that it's definitely geared towards a younger audience. The themes that we're used to in Star Wars, they kind of cut it up to very a very basic level.
Right.
To get that message over to over quickly to younger minds, where they didn't have to sit through a ton of exposition to figure out what was happening, sort of thing.
Yeah, I agree on that point, that there isn't a whole lot of meat to these stories. Like, it's really easy for younger audiences to process that and get a handle on them. But I do enjoy that there's a lot of stuff in them for the fans that are watching this with their kids. Like, you can connect the dots between the stories that you're seeing on screen to when they happen in the movie timeline, in the comic timeline, in the TV show timeline. So I think that's a pretty nifty thing, and I think that this is really a good family tool for introducing people to Star Wars. And so, like, in this episode, maybe the kid watching it with you is just seeing the cool spectacle on the screen, but the adult in the room, or the older fan in the room, who's maybe a little bit more ready to make the crazy connections that all fans make, they're ready to, they can see, oh, I know what scene this takes place in The Force Awakens. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of a cool little, you do get something out of this, even if you are not the target audience. Does that make sense?
Like, the thought of watching this as a family didn't cross my mind. I thought of more of as like a, put this on for your kids to distract them for like a handful of minutes while, you go take care of something real quick in the other room.
I gotta do this laundry.
Exactly. But I do like what you're saying there, that it's a good entry point for families to get into Star Wars as a family activity.
Yeah.
I should say.
Yeah. So there's stuff in here for everybody. Anything catching in your brain for that first episode, or should we move on to the next one?
I do have a bunch of random notes on this episode. However, they don't really work very well as talking points. They're more of miscellaneous notes. So what I think I'm going to do for this episode is take both of our notes and just stick them on our website.
Okay.
On HothTopicsPodcast.com.
That'll be a fun little...
Just so that there's a little more things to read when we release the episode.
Right.
Because my notes are nonsense, as my notes are generally.
Mine are also slightly nonsense for this particular one, because I take notes as I'm watching, so they're usually like quick little tidbits of words that I then go back and revisit, and it just doesn't make any sense.
Exactly. That's why I had to rewatch the show today, or all the episodes today, so that you can look at my notes. And like, I have a note here for this episode that just says Ray Olympic javelinist. And I had to go rewatch the episode to figure out what I was talking about.
Oh, yeah, that's actually, that brings up that triggered a thing for me that I wanted to talk about. I'm so triggered, you guys. No. The reflexes that Rey displays here, and her ability to kind of figure out where the sand beast is gonna pop up. This could absolutely be my Jedi fanboy putting too much onto this scene or this little short, but that could be just minor indications of her Force sensitivity before she knew she was Force sensitive,
Yeah,
just little things that's manifesting. Okay, cool. I'm glad I'm not.
It was like the pauses in between the action where you can see her kind of contemplating her next move, where I got the most, like, she's tapping into her Force sensitivity, like Anakin in Phantom Menace tapping into his innate Force ability to be the only human that can, safely pilot a pod racer. I say safely, but
yeah, it's not a sport for your kids. Yeah. But yeah, so that's I'm glad I'm not the only one who saw that too. And with the javelineer, javelinist, javelineering, Java.
You doing all right over there?
Yeah, no, I got stuck on a word. Triggered. With the javelin part where the beast kind of like has it lodged in its mouth and he crushes down on it and it kind of bows and shoots out and spins towards Rey. Like she catches that thing with pure like dead-eye skill, where in reality I think anybody else not aided by the Force would either have a really hurt hand or be smacked in the face.
The one thing I really, really liked about that scene, with the bow flexing, unintentional pun there, unintentional product placement, was that her staff bends almost completely in half to where the points are touching, and I enjoyed that solely because when I helped my friend Catherine build a Sith Rey costume and we turned Darth Maul's lightsabers into a collapsing staff, the main support body of that staff were just two polycarbonate tubes for the lightsaber, and that thing bent just like the one in the cartoon. So now there's a canon reason why the lightsaber staff I made is so obnoxiously unstable.
Well, I think we can jump off into the next episode here, because unlike the majority of the series, the second episode of this feeds into the next one. The next episode. The next episode is called BB-8 Bandits. It's in that exact same period of time, like maybe even next day, from the first episode, carrying on from the rescue of BB-8 from the Night Watcher. I keep wanting to say Nightcrawler, which is a type of worm.
Just say Graboid.
Yeah, the Graboid. And it opens on Tito kind of spying on them, and my first thought was, hey, Tito, cool. He's like...
And who is Tito, for those who are listening and have no idea who Tito is?
Tito is the grumbly alien dude on Jakku who had initially captured BB-8 and then Rey.
Does he have any respect for anything?
Apparently he doesn't respect anybody.
Oh, okay.
According to Rey. But so he makes an appearance in this. We kind of get a little bit more of that asserted personality trait Rey was talking about, of the non-respect, because he straight up tries to steal BB-8 from Rey again, and he brought some flunkies along with him this time. All of them kind of had I had flashbacks to the Tusken Raider scene in New Hope, where Luke's looking through the binoculars and he sees the Tusken Raider, and then right behind him there's the one that attacks him. That's basically what happens here. Rey sees Tito spying on them and turns around, and there's just one of his flunkies swinging a weapon. There's a bit of a speeder chase that ensues. Everybody but Rey seems to have a blaster. And she ends up outsmarting the flunkies. They crash into each other. And BB-8 makes a beeping suggestion, which Rey appears to agree with. And they lure Tito into the downed Imperial Star Destroyer, where he is then attacked by the Night Watcher worm, who om-nom-noms on his speeder. And I think he ends up getting out of there safe, as do
no one dies in this show.
BB-8. Nobody dies in this show.
It is
I don't know. Did we see a couple of stormtroopers get?
We see stormtroopers get knocked out. We don't see anyone any stormtroopers get shot that I remember. They are following the late 80s, early 90s cartoon thing where no one gets hurt. They just get really bad boo-boos.
Which is fine for what the show is. and the audience they're going for, you know?
Yep.
So it's fine. It's whatever. It's again, this is a cute little story. Totally fits as a scene between scenes. Scene.
And scene.
One of the things I noticed in this episode, I really enjoyed how all of the melee weapons being used seem to be kind of junk builds.
Yeah.
Like Ray's staff,
like all scavenged, just like hers.
So, which really kind of helps further the lore of the scavenger lifestyle on Jakku. So, I thought that was neat. And I thought that maybe we get a little bit more of an example of Rey's Force sense abilities, where she leads the worm. She leads Tito to the worm, and the worm just focuses on Tito and not her. I think maybe she was innately sort of animal empathying the thing.
Or just remembered that she fed him.
Sure,
moments ago.
Both acceptable. Again, that could just be me reading into it. The music's good in this series, I should point out too. It feels very Star Wars. I mean, we hit those the leitmotifs that we were talking about in our music episode. We hit a lot of that in the soundtrack here. But it's good. It's good music. And it helps further the story along as well. What did you think of this little episode here?
This was the first episode that I really liked the animation style. So, for those that aren't familiar, the animation style is very Flash based. Well, they make a model in Flash or in like Photoshop or something, and the models don't really move around a lot. They just kind of how do I want to say? They don't animate every frame.
They're not smooth.
They have a model that they manipulate in the editing software to get the desired effect.
Yeah, it's very 2D animation.
For many of these episodes, even like going into more episodes that we're going to talk about, or that going into episodes we're not going to be talking about tonight, there are some times when the style of animation doesn't look all that good to me. And usually it's like the wide shots or like the panoramic shots where there's a lot of stuff going, or there's not a lot of stuff going on in the background. This episode had a lot of action going on inside of one of the downed Star Destroyers, and all the shots were kept really close, and it reminded me a lot of Samurai Jack.
Oh, yeah.
Because Samurai Jack had a very similar art style.
It does have that.
I believe it was traditionally animated, but the way they did it with their style of animation just was very reminiscent.
Yeah, no, I didn't think about that until you mentioned it. That's a good comparison.
And it's a great way to look, when I was watching it, to stay invested in Forces of Destiny. It just, the illusion would break when they would do large open shots where there was a lot of limbs moving around, and it's like, oh, this kind of looks a little cheesy again. Yeah,
I'd agree with that. I think that it got better as the series went on. Like the second season of it was a little tighter, a little bit more
something
developed, I guess. Which is how most shows work. I mean, the animation style for the Clone Wars and Rebels, I couldn't really handle it.
Clone Wars was painful at the beginning.
Yeah, it was not fantastic, but as it went forward, they worked on it. So, and we're seeing the same example of this here.
The only other, so when we were doing these notes, I think I went a little overly critical of some of the things. Because, right. I'm not the target audience, so I see things that are dumb that I don't need to see.
And we're a couple of sarcastic dudes, so we like to make jokes in our notes as well.
So in all my notes, I referred to the Night Watcher as a gooberfish. Because it's a gooberfish, and then it's a big gooberfish. So my overthinking this thing, like yours with the Force, my overthinking thing is, if this creature lives on junk, why doesn't it eat anything and everything that is the junkyard that is Jakku because of all the debris from the space battle?
It was full.
But why would it need BB-8 then if it could just eat a super star destroyer?
It didn't have lunch.
So, that's, I mean, even if it didn't have lunch, she takes it back to her AT-AT home.
Yeah, I was thinking about that too.
You just take a bite out of the AT-AT. Anyway,
just eat the foot.
It's Star Wars logic. It doesn't need to make sense.
Yeah. Yep.
So,
how about we go into another one here?
Oh, sure.
Sure. Well, we're off of Jakku here, and we end up on Endor.
I have so many dumb notes for this.
Yeah, I figured you were. My very first one was Yub Nub.
My very first one was the episode is called Ewok Escape.
Yep.
And in parentheses, I wrote, based on the title alone, this is my favorite episode. And that was before I watched the episode.
Fantastic. So, John, do you remember what happens in this one?
Based on my notes, there's nonsense that happens. Okay. This takes place during Return of the Jedi, and I believe it is just after Leia gets separated from the strike team. And she comes across some Ewoks who are being hassled, who are being read penal codes by stormtroopers.
Which is the
penal code 310,
thing.
which actually comes up again in another episode, which is dumb.
It's so dumb.
And the stormtroopers, they get ensnared in the classic Ewok trap of being pulled into the sky by Srope, which I thought was ridiculous that one or two Ewoks can pull two stormtroopers into the air.
Well, let me offer you a piece of evidence that might help change your mind on that.
Mm-hmm.
It took...
I want to remind you that this is my favorite episode.
Yeah, no, I understand.
Because there's Ewoks in it.
It took 6 to 8 Ewoks to trip an AT-ST with a bit of vine.
Okay.
So they are... I'm thinking they're packing some pretty serious muscle underneath that fur.
Okay, I can see that. So I think the big MacGuffin of this episode, not MacGuffin, that's not the right word, but
MacGuffin.
Ian, you'll know the word as soon as I say it. Is this shows how Leia got the dress that she's in when the strike team is being cooked?
The filler, I guess?
Yeah.
Plot filler? Yeah.
It doesn't really explain anything, because when we see her in the dress in the movie, I think we all, at least I, the material and the colors are very earthly tones. This is clearly something that was on Endor already. She didn't bring another dress to change into.
Right.
So in this episode, the Ewoks give Leia this dress as a present for helping them with these stormtroopers.
Which doesn't answer the question.
It's just, they had this dress. So my note was, I still think that the dress was removed from was taken from the last family that maybe crashed on Endor.
Sure.
Possibly Momma Towani of the Endor, the Ewok movies.
But those take place post-Return of the Jedi.
Do they? No one knows. They're not canon anymore.
That's a fair point.
And Momma Towani doesn't need the dress anymore because Momma Towani not so much anymore.
Momma Towani not so much.
Not so much anymore.
Can that be our first T-shirt?
Yeah, right. So,
Momma Towani not so much. A message brought to you by Hoth Topics.
What I liked about this whole thing about her giving the dress is oh, look, they give a girl a dress, and is that what this episode's about? Is girls and dresses should go together. But as soon as she has the dress, the first thing she asks is, does this come with a spear?
Yeah.
I'm man, that is Leia. Leia doesn't want a nice dress. Leia wants a nice dress and a weapon that goes with it, because she is a warrior princess.
On the topic of the dress, there's a running theme in my notes where I'm just calling everybody monsters.
Mm-hmm.
And it started in this episode, my first note was, a soldier is surprised that other people didn't take care of the primitives. Monsters. And then 2 notes later it says, dress origin, it's all we ever wanted. Probably from some stormtrooper's family. Monsters.
Probably was stormtrooper family. Or Momma Towani.
I did like I like the Towani I like the Momma Towani thing. That's a good headcanon. I liked the voice of Leia. Obviously she was not voiced by Carrie Fisher. I did a little digging, and the voice actress is Shelby Young. You'll like this. Later in this series, there is an Ewok named Nisa, and Shelby Young also voices Nisa.
Nisa.
So technically, she voices 2 princesses.
Oh, you're talking about the Ewok cartoon princess?
Yeah.
There you
go. So
I am not a huge fan of the Leia voice actress in this.
Oh, really?
I feel that she portrays Leia a little too young.
She is pretty young. When I was looking up the voice actress, she's obvious. She looks young.
Throughout the series, I was never sure if it was the same voice actress each time that Leia showed up, because there was it might just be me that I heard a different inflection on things.
Sure.
Every time Leia showed up. That
could also be part of, on the part of direction that she was given. But no, okay, I see that. I liked it, but I think you make some good points there.
And I recognize it's going to be hard to replace, Carrie.
Right, of course. And anybody who has that job is not going to... One thing I didn't look up, I should have looked up who did the voice line for Carrie Fisher, or for Princess Leia in Rogue One. Because I don't think that was Carrie Fisher either.
I think they just took sound clips of her.
Took a sound clip of her saying hope from somewhere.
Yeah.
It's like
that's what they did for Obi-Wan saying Rey in Force Awakens.
It wasn't even him saying Rey. It was part of a word.
Yeah, it was part of a completely different word.
But they did have Ewan McGregor come in to whisper some stuff, which I really, really enjoyed, because Obi-Wan's my favorite.
You just want Ewan McGregor whispering things to you.
You know what? Yeah, why not? Sure, I'm for it. So there's a point in this episode where my initial note was chastising the stormtrooper for being bad at his job, because one of the Ewoks has a hatchet, a stone hatchet, and the stormtrooper goes, "Is that a weapon?" And I'm just like, of course it's a weapon. You're bad at your job. But then I thought about it for a minute, and I was like, think about it. I don't think stormtroopers are trained to fight primitive species. They're used to dealing with people with other blasters. So he very well could have just seen a stick with a rock tied to it and not actually known if it was a weapon or not.
He was genuinely asking.
Yeah, he was
is that a weapon?
I'm not sure. Does this violate another nonsensical penal code that I know that these natives who do not speak our language don't understand? Good times. Anything else on that episode there, John?
No, that's it.
Well, we watched one more in the series. I think this will be our final one for tonight, and then we'll go over them, maybe one or two at a time down the road, just as a little continuing segment. I think that's the way we're gonna go. Does that sound right?
Yes.
All right.
I think that's what we decided.
Yeah, it was a good idea. Having something to kind of go and revisit, and I think we'll try to do this too with maybe when Resistance comes out and a few other things. It's something we're experimenting with, so stay tuned for more on that. But the last episode of Forces of Destiny we're going to talk about tonight goes to another different time period, and it's called the Padawan Path, and it takes place during the Clone Wars. We open up on Yoda and Anakin. I think we actually open on Ahsoka like running through the Coruscant streets because she's late, and Anakin and Yoda are just hanging out at the temple waiting for her to get there. And I love how like impatient Anakin is being, and Yoda's just completely chill about the whole thing. But Ahsoka's running, trying to get to this meeting that she has to get to with her masters on time, where she's sidetracked because of a rampaging droid whom is threatening a family, a mother and a child, and then she proceeds to stop and kick droid butt, while we consistently cut back to an ever more impatient Anakin and Yoda, who just seems to be getting impatient with Anakin's impatience, which I really enjoyed. Not showing the best Jedi chill there, guys. Ahsoka dispatches the droid and ends up going back, meeting with the masters, and Yoda tells her that she's doing a good job and she's well on her way to being a Jedi, and hands her a piece of her Padawan braid necklace or headpiece thing. So to briefly explain the Padawan braid thing, classically in Star Wars, the Padawan braid, if you are a species capable of growing hair, you just grow a braid out and it's a symbol of your training. But if you're a non-human species or a non-hair growing species, this is supplemented with a piece of jewelry that is in the same fashion. So Ahsoka wears this kind of like beaded braid around her horns. Montrell, thank you. Ooh,
Not Leku.
Although she does have Leku. They're just the bottom part, and the Montrell is the top part. Those are like super sensitive ears. So, what did you take away from this episode, John?
I was super stoked that they brought back cast members from the Clone Wars. So we still had Ashley Eckstein running around as Ahsoka.
Yeah.
For me, this episode, of the ones that we had watched so far, was the most filler episode, I want to say. And I think that's solely because I have familiarity with the Clone Wars and with the Clone Wars show in general. So this kind of just felt like a B story of something that was going on. So I think that kind of took away from what was going on with it. Also, I didn't understand what the big deal was with getting this, getting the braid, and why Anakin was so like impatient about it.
Yeah, the build up and the payoff were not equal in their sort of the importance factor, I think. I see what you're saying about it feeling like a filler episode. That didn't really bother me, just because I felt like a lot of the Clone Wars was just filler episodes.
Well, that's what kind of turned me off to the episode, is I've seen this.
Okay. Oh, okay. I see what you're saying.
And I think that the Rebels episodes and the Clone Wars episodes of Forces of Destiny, they all kind of feel that way to me, because we've seen something similar to this.
Okay, that's fair enough.
Or the ones that are based in the movies kind of fill in plot gaps, or just like time in between things. The ones that are based on characters from existing shows,
right,
don't have the same urgency, I should say.
Okay, yeah, that's a fair enough point. I think maybe I'm just a little bit more forgiving of it because I'm getting Yoda, who's in my top 5, and more Jedi.
Well, don't get me wrong. I was so stoked that Snips was in it, because she was my favorite character in Clone Wars. And to go off on a Clone Wars side tangent,
I don't think I knew that. That's really cool.
Well, she started off super annoying.
Well, yeah.
And then of all the characters, I think she's like, to me, she's the only one that actually had any character growth.
Yeah,
it's only because those other characters have an overarching story in those movies, and they were kind of locked into their personalities, where Snips wasn't in the movies, so we could see her progress from, whining brat to
the Force Sage.
Yes, something more.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's a really good point, and I agree.
Also,
with you. I think she did.
I don't think anyone can ever be upset at Ashley Eckstein. She's adorable.
Yeah, she's just 100% cool person there. Ahsoka was super cool in this episode. We got a little bit of lightsaber action, which was now that you mentioned the Samurai Jack comparison, it was kind of cool to see some lightsaber action in that style.
Mm-hmm.
The model for Anakin in this is so Ken doll in appearance. I don't know how to, he's got the full lips and the chin thing going on. How would you describe that? It's very it's very distracting.
He's absolutely a doll.
Yeah, it's super distracting. It was really distracting for me. The Yoda model, however, looked, I think, infinitely better than what we got in Rebels. It actually looked and felt like Yoda. Yeah, on the Padawan braid piece thing, I was kind of interested in that because it shows some importance to getting pieces of it, which I'm wondering if that's again, diving too deep, is that a ceremony for only non-mammal species? Is this
maybe it's a Boy Scout type merit badge system where you get a new bead every time you do good?
If students who can grow the braids, do they need to keep it at a certain length until they hit a...
Here's your Sith sling merit badge.
Yeah.
Obi-Wan has a few of those.
Yeah, well...
Or does he? He's never really that good at it. I mean, he's gotten one.
Yeah, but it took him
40 years.
3 movies and 2 television shows to do it. So yeah, I was kind of I dived a little too deep into the Padawan braid bit. It was cool to see that there was some trouble on Coruscant. We saw a little bit of that explored in
Clone Wars.
In the Clone Wars, and we see it a lot more in kind of novels and comics, but I'd like to see more stuff, more of that Coruscant underworld thing happening.
You want 1313?
I do. I want 1313. I think that would be neat.
Or the Terrace levels in KOTOR.
Yeah. And I don't know. Did you ever play the Jango Fett bounty hunter game?
I did not.
I don't remember enough of it to say if it was good or not, but I do remember playing it and enjoying kind of the underworld aesthetic that had. Maybe that's when I need to track down for our future video game podcast, because that would be a fun thing to revisit and then see how wrong I am in my rose-tinted memory club. So, zero regard for droids' rights in this in this episode.
Yeah, you gotta put them down.
Gotta put them down. Well, you know what, John? We're being too hasty in our judgment. We should get the Rodian on the streets point of view.
No. I disagree.
Well, that's a little taste of the Forces of Destiny show. Like I said before, if you're interested in knowing what we're talking about, seeing this, it's a great little introduction for families, bringing a younger demographic into Star Wars. They're 2 to 3 minutes a piece long. You're not really losing anything by not seeing them, but you also stand to gain some fun little nuggets of lore that you might not have thought of before if you do watch them. So that's coming from guy in his mid-20s. This is not necessarily, my opinion is not the opinion of the target audience, but I think it's still worth checking out, especially if you have young kids and you want to introduce them to Star Wars. And we'll talk a little bit more about some of these episodes, other episodes going forward, and little mini segments along the way. Anything to add on top of that, John, before we close out the...
I think you nailed it.
All right. Well, moving on from that, John, you and I have been pretty busy. Funnily enough, we haven't been just doing podcast recording stuff. We've started doing some little side articles and write-ups on the site. And I don't think we've mentioned it before, but I think it'd be cool if we kind of talked about what it is we've been writing about and share with people kind of what they can expect from our extra notes and our write-ups on the Hoth Topics podcast site, which is hothtopicspodcast.com. So what have you been working on lately, John? You've got a couple articles up floating around, and soon to be some more.
So this should be released sometime mid-July, I believe.
Beginning of July.
First week? Okay. So I'm going to be starting and should be hopefully nearly finished with a series of prop and costume and Star Wars DIYing posts, pulling from existing props that I have documented before in the past and new props and lead up to San Diego Comic-Con, where my friend Catherine and I will do our traditional last minute, we have to do something that we haven't done before costume, which used to be steampunk all the time, and now it's steampunk none of the time and mostly Star Wars related. By the time this comes out, I should be halfway through finishing up my General Veers armor build.
And you also had a heavy blaster pistol?
Yeah, that will have been out for a couple weeks by the time this airs.
Yeah.
My last minute costume build will be a Star Tours themed build.
I'm so looking forward to seeing this.
It's so obnoxious.
Come together. It's going to be glorious. So,
my friend is I don't know, I'll need to talk to her, is a cast member at Disneyland. That's what kind of gave me the idea to do a Star Tours thing. 'Cause Star Tours might have been my first experience of Star Wars. I don't remember. But I didn't want to do just what the cast members at Disneyland wear. Because that's a costume, or that's an outfit I can go on eBay and pick up from disgruntled Disney employees taking their uniforms home. Or I don't know if they can. I don't know if they can take it home.
It's really frowned upon.
However, Hasbro does deals with Disney parks to have special commemorative figure boxes and whatnot. And they did one a few years back called the Star Tours Boarding Crew, which included a Star Tours officer, which, if you're familiar with the Hasbro 3¼ inch or 3¾ inch figures, they took the Death Star Commander, Death Squad, I don't know, the name changes. It's the guys with the big helmets. They took that figure, gave it an Imperial officer hat, and painted it obnoxious orange, or Caltrans orange, as I like to call it for those in California, and a
vibrant blue.
A vibrant blue. Oh, it's not the Death Star Commando. It's a
scanning crew.
Yeah, it's the scanning crew. For those that costume know, it's the X-Wing jumpsuit, the gray scanning crew jumpsuit, the black TIE Fighter outfit, the gray ATST
all of
jumpsuit.
Them use that same basic.
So I get to make one of those from scratch, which will be super fun. I don't want to do I'm going to do the orange officer hat, but what I'd like to do is find a pattern to do a custom build of the Rebel Trooper helmet, which I think is very similar to the Yavin base flight control technician, the guys with the I'm doing hand motions and I keep forgetting the word audio medium.
Yep, and I can't see you either because of the thing in my way here.
Yeah, the flight control sticks, the guiding ships out.
Yeah.
And then I would do that in the orange and blue with a big old Star Tours logo in the middle.
Dude, those guiding light things are pretty simple to make. It's just plastic cone on a flashlight, essentially.
I wasn't gonna make those the guiding things, but just because I want to have my hands free when I'm walking around.
That'll be okay. Yeah, that's fair.
And it's not gonna be like Jyn Erso in Rogue One, where I can just mount them to some back armor.
You could probably clip them onto your belt.
Yeah. Maybe
that'll be my project.
We'll see what it is.
Maybe that'll be my project.
I do want to print out some travel brochures.
Oh, that would be so rad.
Because I'm a big fan of the Indoor Express, but I know that there are liars and falsifiers out there that claim to have gone to Hoth on the this is all based on the original version of Star Tours.
John has strong opinions about Star Tours.
I don't really have strong opinions. I've never been on the new one.
Yeah, fair.
I haven't been to Disneyland since Star Tours changed out, so I don't have any experience on it. Yeah. Also, there's more robots in it, and there's far less Captain Rex than what I would appreciate.
That is a shame that's no longer a thing.
Quick side tangent on Star Tours since we're talking about it.
I think we're already in tangent territory.
Yeah, that's fair. When I was a kid going on it and seeing Captain Rex, I would get legitimately scared because some of the ride machines, the Rex droid, they had attached a remove before flight tag, and I, being young, assumed that meant like remove before ride operates, and not like a joke of like, you know, he's not a good pilot and like it's gonna malfunction sort of thing. And so when I'd get in the ride vehicles that had that, I would be legitimately scared that tag was gonna like get caught in the droid, and then we were all gonna be on fire. So
that's pretty awesome. But so you're gonna be basically going through some of your prop builds, and sticking your process up on our site.
Yeah, and I have a couple other posts on there right now that are kind of reflections on our time on the podcast. The first one I did was about how I haven't been able to really listen to other people's podcasts since we started. And I did another one on the differences I was seeing in the audiences of Solo, because we went to go see it at a premiere at the Chinese theater
with a bunch of other Star Wars
fans, and then we were in costume and we were hanging out at a Star Wars themed bar, the Scum and Villainy up there. And then the next time I saw it was at the local theater, and just like the reactions,
it was almost uncomfortable, like the difference.
So that's what I've been up to. Ian, did you do anything? You don't really write, do you? You don't have any opinions?
I don't really write. I don't have opinions. No, I keep everything inside, and I speak to no one about anything. I like to sit in my safe space. And,
that's what the voices tell me.
And not offend anybody. I just, hide under tables, and I'm actually a really quiet guy. I don't normally talk about things. Real quick before I get into to my thing, the two sort of article types that you're writing, a lot of your opinion pieces and reflections are under your A Quick Annuat series, which, why don't you explain that title for a second?
So the cover image I use is a location card from the Star Wars customizable card game I grew up playing. When I was a kid, I always assumed that the pronunciation of that planet was a note. So it was a quick note, a quick unnote. And then in one of the, I think it was Rebels, where they like, oh, we're going to the Anahuat system. I'm like, oh, you jerk. But it's already too late to change it. And I thought it was it was a dumb pun that me and one person will get because
I'm the other person.
And our podcast is Hoth Topics, and the Hoth system, or the planet Hoth, is in the Anahuat system. So there was 2 levels of deep cuts there that turned out to one be incorrect and now is probably should be changed, but
no,
I'm not gonna because I've already made the graphics.
So we've got A Quick Annuat, which is your kind of thoughts, opinion piece, op-ed pieces, and then what is the article title for your
prop things?
Upcoming prop
That's
series?
Imperial Prop Aganda.
Very good. Very good. Well, I too have been writing some stuff up. Regular listeners will know, and I preface my very first article with the fact that I am known for having spirited opinions about things.
Get you some words.
What really got me started writing these kind of opinion pieces. The last couple weeks, we've had a bit of a dust up in the Star Wars fandom. I think it's safe to say that there's been a bit of a reckoning between maybe some more toxic members of the community and people who maybe have stood by and quietly kind of let this fester for a while. And we're finally starting to talk about it and talk about the negativity that's been affecting the fandom. And so I wanted to take the opportunity to kind of voice my opinions on it in a matter where I'm not sitting here talking off the cuff of my head, off the top of my head. Like, I love doing the podcast and sharing my opinions on here, but I really wanted to start doing things where I had a little bit more time to dive deep and really think on the subject and be able to really say what I wanted to say. So the articles that I am writing are called Ian Has Opinions On. So a little joke there, but
it's not really a joke. It's a factual statement.
It's a fact, yeah. And the first two that I've written, I've put up there, are focusing on this sort of toxic fandom that has been popping up lately and my opinions on that. And I think it's safe to say, most people who listen to us know that we're not, we've got our opinions and we've got our jokes and things, but at the end of the day, like, we support people who love their fandom in a positive manner and don't go after other people for not liking the things that they like or don't like. I dived a little bit deep into that, but going forward, it's not going to solely be about the kind of downside and things. I'll just use it as an opportunity to share my thoughts on Star Wars and go maybe deeper into some topics that we cover on the podcast and some things that maybe we haven't covered yet, and just share my own personal opinions a little bit more. So my opinion pieces are Ian Has Opinions On, John's are A Quick Anoet, and
a quick note. don't break the illusion.
And it's thoroughly shattered at this point.
It is.
And he'll also have his prop making stuff up on Imperial Propaganda. So that's a little bit of what we've been doing on the side when we're not recording episodes.
In regards to your most recent opinion piece,
the one I wrote on George Lucas,
on the fans,
George Lucas and the fans.
Yeah. I don't read our stuff,
and yet we're about to talk about
right.
it.
So just real quick is that as the editor of the show, I have cut stuff out of episodes that dealt with you talking about kind of the bad apples in the fandom, and I did it mostly because I didn't want to. I didn't want to poke the bear sort of thing.
I have a tendency
with newer listeners,
right?
And be welcoming to everybody. But over the past couple of weeks, we have seen just this insane increase in toxicity. I don't want to keep using that term because it's used nonstop, but like the negativity, and then another rise in positivity coming to meet it, which has been very eye-opening. That like maybe I shouldn't have cut that stuff out.
Well, in your defense, I tend to, in the heat of the moment, the actual meaning of what I'm trying to say gets kind of lost in my spirited way of saying it.
Right.
So I don't like hold that against you when I say something that sounds maybe kind of off, even if that's not my original intention, and you're really good at like knowing, I know exactly what Ian means, but
I don't
saying
think it's
it like a
across.
dickhead.
Yeah, and to kind of break kayfabe here, to use a wrestling term, our show dynamic is you say something and then I'll be a jackass back to you. But a topic like that, I didn't feel comfortable being sarcastic back at you because it is a real problem.
Yeah.
So I'm glad that we now have a place for you to kind of collect your thoughts,
right,
and
share them in a way that does not come off as assholishness.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and that's fair enough. But I think that you and I can both agree that in the current fandom, there's been a lot of negativity and to really extremes. We've seen sexism, racism, death threats all over this thing that we all supposedly love and come together over, which is Star Wars. And really, I think I'm going to say this for me, and you agree or not, but I think it's safe to say that we both really stand with the people out there who are trying to
remake Lost Jedi.
God, no.
No? Okay.
We really stand with the people who are combating this negativity by just sharing their positive experiences and trying to be more inviting to the next generation of Star Wars fans. Because at the end of the day, we got to grow up on Star Wars. We got to grow up on this amazing galaxy full of content, and there were definitely some tribulations along the way, but we got our childhood love of Star Wars as kids, and the next generation really deserves a fandom that's going to be welcoming to them, that's going to support the content that they're going to grow up with, and really make people feel like this is a place where fun can be had, and we support the people who are working towards making the fandom a more inviting place for anybody to come and enjoy and share the love of Star Wars that we have. So that's that on that subject.
Now the question is, will I edit it out?
Oh my
After apologizing for editing stuff out.
Leave in the apology, but edit out everything else. Just delete my track. You're just talking to yourself the whole time. No, I appreciate that, man. I appreciate you talking about that, and it definitely has been an eye-opening experience here in the fandom, and like I am just overwhelmed and really hopeful when I see kind of the people that we've come to learn about through doing this podcast, and how open they are and how supportive they are of the fans that are trying to create this better fandom. And there are so many really good positive influencers out there. Maybe I'll put together a list and we can put them somewhere, maybe in the show notes here. Just people that are working really hard to make things better, different podcasts and Star Wars fans out there. So special thank you to all you. I will name you in the show notes, and there are probably even more out there than I know about. But it's really heartening to see that we're not the crazy people who we're not the minority here, even though it sometimes can feel like that with all the different voices shouting online. Nowhere else will you find a more wretched hive of scum and villainy. Unless
you go to the Scum and Villainy Cantina,
which is a safe place
for nerds.
Yeah, shout out to the Scum and Villainy Cantina. We've talked about it before, but if you're in Hollywood and you're looking for a place to just nerd out, that is where you go. Links to them in the show notes too. Links for everybody.
Everyone gets a link.
You get a link. You get a link. Everybody gets a link. And somebody gets a Zelda.
I was gonna make that joke, but then I was like, you know what? Our fans expect better.
From you, maybe, not from me. They know what to expect out of me. All right. Well, hey, I had a good time talking about Forces of Destiny and kind of our side projects here. If you have a topic that you would like to hear us talk about and investigate, we are always open and willing to hear your suggestions, your comments, your criticisms, and we want to hear from you. Let us know what you want to hear. Let us know what you think about what we're talking about, and we will get back to you. And we just want to start having those conversations with people who listen. So If you want to get a hold of us, you can send us an email at hothpod@gmail.com.
There it is.
Or if you want to find us on Twitter, we are at hothpod. And you can always check us out on our website, hothtopicspodcast.com. That's hothtopicspodcast.com. And you can listen to us on a variety of different podcast channels, iTunes, Google Play, or wherever you get your podcasts. We should be there. Let us know. Talk to us. We want to interact with you.
I'm tired too.
Yeah, it is another late night recording, but I think I don't know. I feel like sometimes the tired makes us.
At least we're not drinking.
Yeah, that'll be a different podcast.
That'd be a mistake.
I don't know about this Star Wars. Who is the Force anyway? All right, good times. Well, I've been Ian.
I've got to figure out where I can get an obnoxious orange jumpsuit and a vibrant blue one.
That's John. This has been another episode of Hoth Topics, a podcast about Star Wars. Thank you very much, everybody. We will see you next time.
And may the Force ever be in your favor. This is a panic save.
Panic save.
I clicked out of the recording software.
All
right. And clap back.
Unnecessary.
So this, my TV's going to turn off. This is panic mode.
Madness.
Everything's breaking
Everything
down.
is madness. Okay. Panic. That reminded me of a talking point I wanted to talk about. Sense?
Yeah, I actually didn't think about it until now. Like how great of a thing this is for watching it as a family. Like you said, the older fans, or mom and dad, you could say, know a little bit more about what's going on in the overall story. And I had a thought there. And I realized in that moment that in my hand I'm holding a plastic knife and one lens from a pair of glasses I found on the ground. So that thoroughly distracted me. Okay, let me rewind.
It's Mike!
And his name is John Cena!
Da, 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 da. Do you want to give it a cut point there so you have a note tag?
Nah.
All right.